Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Dear old work platform, it's not you, it's us. Actually, it is you. Endless onboarding? Constant IT bottlenecks? We've had enough. We need a platform that just gets us. And to be honest, we've met someone new. They're called Monday.com, and it was love at first onboarding. Their beautiful dashboards, their customizable workflows got us floating on a digital Cloud 9. So no hard feelings, but we're moving on. Monday.com, the first work platform you'll love to use.
Hello and welcome to Just Films and That, with me, Josh Hallam.
And me, Alice Oliver. This is the podcast where we talk about films that we think are underrated, underappreciated, or we just wanted to talk about them.
We're also going to get stuck into some classic films that one of us maybe hasn't seen, and maybe throw in some great guests along the way. So we start, as we do every week, with a random question. Alice, do you like video games? And what was the first video game you owned and played?
So I do like video games, and I've actually only recently kind of just got back into them, and I'm sort of like, you know, extending my horizons in terms of video games. My video gaming career is mostly focused and centered around Sonic. So when I was younger, it was all Sonic. It was Sonic this, Sonic that, Sonic everything. And then as that sort of developed, that went 3D and, you know, the controllers got a bit more complex. And I just kind of, I wasn't sharp enough, I think, to kind of keep up with the 3D and the sort of advancements of it. So I just sort of then just kind of stopped, really. But the first video game I ever owned, so I can't remember what it's called, but there were ducks. It was on the Master System. Ducks would fly across the screen and you had to shoot them. And you had a plastic gun that you plugged in that was like the controller.
Proper old school arcade style.
Yeah, proper like that. So I think it's called like Duck Hunt or Shoot the Duck or something. But that was the first one. I've vivid memories of playing that like way back when. But then after that, it was like Sonic. I was hot on the Sonic bandwagon for a long time. Still am. What about you? You a gamer?
A little bit, not really, not like casually every now and then I might play like a Batman game or some sort of comic book game or a football game, Football Manager, that kind of thing. I was never Sonic. I was very much a PlayStation guy, so I was Crash Bandicoot.
Oh, yeah, brilliant.
In fact, Sonic, of all the kind of well-known mascots, if you like your Sonics and your Marios and Donkey Kongs and all that, Sonic's probably the one I know the least about because I was always Crash Bandicoot or Super Mario. So other than playing like the first or one of the early Sonics, the first one with Knuckles and Tails in it, I think, was the one I played. But my first video game, I think I remember getting a PlayStation 1. That's it, kid. That's right, kids. PlayStation 4 PlayStations ago. I got Crash Team Racing and Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, the game of the film, for my first game for like Christmas whenever the Christmas after the film came out. So I think it was that. And if it wasn't that, it was definitely one of the first Pokemons.
Oh yeah. On Nintendo or on Game Boy?
On Game Boy.
Yeah. Game Boys, man. Wow. I remember we got one. I say we got one. My brother got one, but it was like the family Game Boy. Obsessed with it. Used to play Mario on that all the time. Mario. I was a big fan of Mario as well. I wasn't just Camp Sonic because I had the Sega stuff, and then my sister had Nintendo, and then my brother had all the PlayStation stuff. So we would sort of rotate. You know, Crash Bandicoot one day, Mario the next. We had quite a good system.
The first Mario the first Mario you could get on Game Boy was that. That was a game when, again, you couldn't even save it.
Yeah.
Like if you died or if you lost all your lives, that was it. You just had to do it again. And that taught us, not to get political, that taught us perseverance and hard work. Not just, tell you what, kids, if you want this extra content, just pay for it, yeah? Anyway, we'll move on to talking about this week's film. So we're talking about a film that I picked this week, which is The Commitments from 1991. So spoiler warning if you didn't see that. Just to give you a little bit of a background on the film. It centers on a group of kind of working class, unemployed people in Dublin. The main character of which is Jimmy Rabbit, who has kind of big dreams of success, decides to put together a band of all these fellow Dubliners to play soul music and hopefully kind of make it big as a band. And the film just really follows them through their development and eventual demise as a soul group. So, Alice, had you seen this one?
No, I hadn't seen this one, so I was going in blind again, which I always enjoy. But I thought, I was really, really impressed, and I thought that there were some really sort of top quality elements to it. I'm really intrigued to know why you picked this.
So I picked this. First of all, I think it is just generally great fun with an amazing soundtrack, like one of my favorite soundtracks. This is a soundtrack that I legitimately listen to. Like it's like my favorite songs are on my Spotify playlist, if you like. And I picked it because I believe that when it came out, it was quite a hit. I think like a lot of people I know of a certain age like this when it came out, and then I think it's kind of faded away. And I thought it's very much a film that's kind of worth a revisit because the messages in the film and the kind of the stuff in the film that's still relevant and it's still very entertaining. So I guess I picked it because I think it's kind of underseen in that there's probably a fresh generation of people that I think should see this film because I think they would take a lot from it if only the amazing music.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, I agree. Even on just sort of first viewing as well, I definitely got that impact that you're talking about. So what were some of your favourite things about this? What are some of the key aspects that kind of really had you gripped?
So the main thing is the music and the performances where the sequences where they perform music. I like the fact that it's got the right balance between this raw, sexy soul music and it's kind of very unpolished in places. But at the same time, the band are playing their own music. So it's not like a selection of music videos where they're just playing the covers of the songs. There's a reason why they're playing the songs. And it's quite, as I say, it's raw, it's unpolished, and it's never cheesy. I like that. I really like the direction. So it's directed by Sir Alan Parker, who unfortunately passed away in 2020. And he's very well versed in the musical. He's done other films, a lot of. It's funny actually because it kind of captures the two things that he's really good at, which is he really likes doing musicals. So he did like Bugsy Malone, Evita. I think he did Fame as well, and he also did like Angela's Ashes, which obviously deals with people going like working class people dealing with strife and all the things that comes with it. And that's very much a mixture of these two films, of those two things. It's very much about a group of people who just kind of want to do something more with themselves.
It's that really sort of desperate working class sort of attitude, isn't it? I think like you were saying about being able to relate to it, it's about having that drive to just pull yourself out of this situation that you're in. Like Jimmy is just, he's hell-bent on it, isn't he? It's like, you know, we've got to get out of here. We've got to make something for ourselves. And it's kind of just making something out of this really desperate situation that they're in.
Yeah, it's really summed up as well at the end where, obviously we'll come back to the other elements of the film, but at the end, so if you've not seen it, again, I know I've already done it, but spoilers, the band actually don't really do anything. They just split up and it's about, they kind of get better and then there's people in it who aren't really musicians. There's other people in it who are musicians. And one of them is this supposedly really storied, experienced musician who says he's played with all the greats. And there's this through line in the film about whether he is or isn't making that up. So some of them think, you know, he's definitely played with the Beatles and Elvis, and he's the trumpet player in the band. And he talks about playing with all these great soul artists like Otis Redding, Sam Cooke, people like that. And he says in it that he can get them a gig, or he can get Wilson Pickett to come and see them. If you don't know Wilson Pickett, and he's just another one of these massively successful soul artists. So the film culminates in them playing a gig that supposedly afterwards Wilson Pickett is going to come down and either see or jam with them, and maybe that'll be, you know, their door into stardom. And all the way through it, you don't know if this guy is full of shit or if, and it never really clears up if he is, which is again a joke that I really like. But at the end, when the band's all broken up and they've all gone off to do their different things, just before you get the kind of coda of the film where Jimmy, who's narrating it all the way through, tells you what they all want to do, because he does kind of narrate the film in the sense that they use a device in it which I really like, where it's him interviewing himself. So he doesn't narrate to you, the audience. He narrates to himself, usually in the bath or looking at himself in the mirror, about as if he's really successful and the band are really successful, and like what he did to get to become so successful. Anyway, so the band have this big argument. They all go off their separate ways, and he kind of storms off. And the trumpet player, who's the one who you think might have been bullshitting all the way through it, approaches him on his little moped, kind of says to him, you know, it doesn't really matter that we didn't do anything, because what you did was you showed them all that something else was possible, and you showed them all they could make something of themselves. And I just think that's a kind of really lovely message, that it doesn't, not so much the taking part that counts, but that idea of, because you showed all these people who had kind of no hope that there is hope, I guess.
Yeah, and it was like he saw something in them that no one else saw. Like the girls that he gets to come and sing for him, he's like, oh, I knew you when I used to sing in church or in choir, like back in the day and stuff. So it's like, it's bringing out the best. I mean, sometimes it brings out the worst, you know, sort of a bit towards the end there, where they're sort of really sort of having proper rows and really laying into each other. But it gives them an opportunity to do something that they're really good at, and to have people celebrate it and appreciate. And, you know, when they're playing the shows, it's like they always look like they're sold out. Everyone's always having a great time. Their parents are up dancing and clapping. And it was just sort of a really kind of great feeling for them. So even though it didn't all work out happily in the end, he's given them that, and maybe hope, you know, that hope is important.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the music. So I really like soul music. Again, that's one of the reasons why I really love the film. Do you like soul music? Is it your sort of cup of tea?
It's weird because I don't not like soul music, but I've never sought it out, I suppose. And I wouldn't really know where to go. Like, I don't think I'd know who to pick. Like, I'm sure I know soul, like my parents, you know, love Marvin Gaye, Sam Cooke, like you said. So there are bits of it there, but I don't think I'd be able to sort of accurately identify what soul is, really. But I think that's just from my very sort of limited experience.
No, you are right. The kind of lines of the genre between like soul, R&B, funk, and like your Motown era are all quite blurred, because they all happened quite, again, I believe, quite quickly. So they're all kind of within the same, you know, the last 50 years or so. And I'm not a musician, so I don't know if there's any kind of musical difference in soul. But this film, so I do like soul music, and this film actually put me on to soul music. So I remember watching this. I don't know. I must have been a teenager or something like that, and I'm really liking music. And I knew the classics from, like, you know, I knew Mustang Sally from, you know, discos and family parties and weddings and that sort of thing. But then listening to the soundtrack, which I had on CD, now it made me go and kind of listen to other people. So that put me on to like Otis Redding, Sam Cooke, a little bit of Aretha Franklin, people like that. So yeah, I do love soul music, but I was interested to know if you did, or if it made you want to listen to any more, because there's songs that they do. So if you check out the soundtrack on Spotify, and I would urge anyone listening to this to check it out if you've got Spotify or any music streaming service. But there's albums of music from the Commitments band on there, because they treat the whole process like they were a real band. So they recorded songs that aren't actually even in the musical. So, for example, Wilson Pickett did there's a very famous song that he did called "Land of a Thousand Dances," which you'd know because it starts with the famous count of like 1, 2, 3, bam, 1, 2, 3, bam.
Oh
like
yeah.
That. And then it does, and I think it's in the Full Monty. I think one of them dances to it in the Full Monty when he's auditioning to it. It's in loads of stuff, but that's not in the film. But it's on the soundtrack of them doing it, and there's loads and loads of songs on there. Just check it out on Spotify. It's really worth checking out. But I do think the music it's great, and the lead singer has a voice that's just absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, certainly agree. I think that was one of the things that maybe surprised me a little bit as well, is just how talented that they all were. But yeah, the lead singer obviously, did really stand out. There was just a lot of power to his voice, I felt.
Have a guess, and you might already know this. So if you do, just say. Have a guess how old you think he is in the film. The actor.
In the film,
yeah. The
how
actor.
old
yeah.
are they? Like early 20s, probably, like 24.
So he's 18.
Is he really?
He was 17 when he was cast. So I believe the story goes that they wanted his dad to audition for a role, and he went with his dad somewhere, an audition or for a meeting, and someone heard him singing and gave him the part. His name's Andrew Strong, but he's toured with really massive artists as a supporting artist. I think he's toured with like Prince and people like that. So, but he's got this incredible voice. But I could not believe. I thought he was like in his 30s.
Yeah. He looks kind of worn a little bit, like he's already had a bit of a life. But I suppose maybe that's what it was like growing up in Dublin in that time.
Yeah, I mean, no offense, but that's a tough old paper round.
yeah, absolutely.
What did you think of the way the film balanced musical and comedy together? Like, did you find it funny?
There were certainly moments of humour. I thought a lot of it came from the brilliantly written script. So most of my notes I found by the end of it were just writing down a sentence that someone had said, because the use of language was just so colourful. New ways to offend people, new ways to piss people off. Some of it was remarkable. I've written some of my favourite ones down, and they're ones that I thought sort of had a wider kind of point to them. One of them I really loved was, if they had soul, men wouldn't be blowing each other's heads off. But I thought that was really lovely, because it's just kind of really emphasising the importance of music and having that creative freedom, especially in a time which is quite harsh and that is really exposing you to a lot of the harshness of reality, like being poor, maybe not feeling safe all the time, not having opportunities ahead of you as you grow up. And just one other moment that just, when you just hear a phrase or you hear language and it sort of stops you in your tracks. So Jimmy's dad, I believe, calls him a malignant little bastard. And it was just so many things like this, like just using language so creatively and beautifully. And it was for every character, pretty much. Every character had great dialogue, and every character had so much depth, I thought, as well.
Yeah, they do a lot to develop characters that don't because the band's massive. It's not like a 4-piece band. The band's got like 10 people in it or something, because it's got backup singers, multiple guitar players and multiple kind of brass players and stuff. So you're right, they do a lot to develop each character, and that's where I think the script really shines, in that it gives each character, even if it's just a little inkling, like a tiny backstory. So like, of the three, there's 3 backup singers in it, and each of them gets like a little, it's almost like it's a series of sketches and vignettes where you get to know their backstory. So like, when they start rehearsing, it gives you like little glimpses into each of their lives. Like, one of them is a piano player. He's training to be a GP, but he's also really, really Christian. And it shows him like going to a priest and going to confession and talking about how he's in this band and he's had lustful feelings for one of the backup singers, and that he can't stop singing When a Man Loves a Woman. And he goes, When a Man Loves a Woman by Marvin Gaye. And the priest just goes, Percy Sledge. It was Percy Sledge that sang that. And it's just loads of little, like you say, really great throwaway little lines and gags, and like you say, absolutely fantastic, top-notch swearing. It's like have you ever seen The Thick of It? It's
it's with Capaldi.
Yeah,
Capaldi.
Plays Malcolm Tucker. It's just an absolute barrage of absolutely top-notch swearing in that, and this is a little bit like that. But no, I like the way you get these little glimpses into their lives. Like, for example, one of the backing singers, Bernie, stops coming to rehearsals, and she stops coming to rehearsals because her dad isn't well, I think, and her mum is about to have a baby, and she's the only child of a big family that's old enough to earn any money, so she has to go and earn money. And it's literally a 2, 3, 4 minute scene where he goes to see her and goes, "You've not been coming to rehearsals," and she goes, "This is why." And then she's just back in the band, and you could almost adapt this into quite a good TV series where, each character had their own reasons for being in the band. I think that's definitely something I've watched. I don't know about you, but No, I really like the script, and I like what the script actually was a lot funnier, like you say, with the gags than I remember it being. Like the first gig they do, where they're absolutely shocking at the fundraiser, I think it is for heroin addiction, and like heroin spelt wrong on the sign, so they change it. Like I had completely forgotten that was a gag, but I do think it's really funny, and considering there's not really any massive names in this. I think the most famous person in it is probably Cole Meany, who plays Jimmy's dad, who would have been known around the time of this for Star Trek. But other than that, not many of them were big at the time, as far as I know. I don't know. Do you know if any of them were?
No, I didn't recognise any of the names, I don't think, on the credits, and none of the actors were familiar to me.
No, but they're all, they all got great comic timing, and they all do really well with the script, I think.
Oh yeah, certainly. Just a really great masterclass in world building, I think, as well. Sort of every prop, every costume decision, every location decision. There's one scene near the beginning where Jimmy has a sports bag full of videos, and he hops on the bus to kind of sell these videos to the kids. And I just kind of really stood back and appreciated that scene. I was like, they didn't have to do that on a bus. He could have done that around the corner. They could have made that easier for themselves instead of filming that on a bus with all these kids all close together. And I just really appreciate stuff like that. Like you had shipping containers and stuff in people's sort of backyards and the green spaces around their houses that the children were playing in. There were horses just loose.
Yeah. Horse in an apartment block.
Yeah.
For no reason.
Brilliant sort of costume choices and hairstyles, loads of kids rallying around on their BMXs and stuff. Just really great world building. And while this is all going on, you do it's quite a nice soundtrack. And most of the songs, not the ones that they're singing, but the sort of non-diegetic music, I suppose, that's happening, it's most of the time quite upbeat. But the scenes that you're seeing, 1991 Dublin, it's quite harsh, isn't it? It was quite a harsh environment, I think. So it was just really interesting how he struck that balance and how that made everything you were seeing more impactful. And it also made Jimmy's drive so much more believable and real. Like, I feel like you can really understand what he's feeling, what he's going through. And he gets a bit grouchy sometimes, and maybe he doesn't treat everyone as well as he should, but he's got this drive from somewhere that he feels like he needs to break out. And I feel like that's projected really well over the whole course of the film.
You're absolutely right. And it does a thing that a lot of great kind of directors do, which is it builds that world without spoon feeding it you. So that no point in it is that, big, massive speeches about how poor they all are. It doesn't really hit you over the head with the message. So it doesn't patronize you as the audience. It shows you instead. It shows, it doesn't tell. So you can see what sort of situation and what sort of conditions they're all having to deal with without it constantly reminding you. It's just that you can see it, like you say, from the streets and the kind of burnt out cars and the fact that they're all doing anything to scrape a living and the fact they're all working these jobs that they don't like doing just to make ends meet. And I really like that because when you couple that with the whole idea of the fact that they're doing soul music, it's like he says in the film, soul is the kind of spirit of the workers. It's sex and it's work.
It's sex in the factory.
That's it.
That's what he says, isn't it? Yeah, it's sex in the factory.
You're right. It really does. It builds that world really, really well. Did you have a favorite song from the film?
I don't know. I wasn't super familiar with many of the songs, if any, so I wouldn't know which one to say, like, oh yeah, this one, like I wouldn't know the name of it. But obviously the fact is the further that they go on, the better they get and the stronger their performances and stuff. So again, when it gets towards the end, obviously that's like, you just feel like, I feel like it was so unexpected. I don't know why. I don't know what I was expecting. I think I was expecting them to be a bit of a gimmick or something. Like I said, I didn't really know much about the film, and I thought it was going to be much more of a disaster than it really was.
Oh, so you didn't go in with high expectations?
Not high expectations of the film, but high expectations of the band that he was putting together. Like, I wasn't sure kind of what was going to come up, like what's going to be a struggle, where's this going to come from. But the fact is that when they were on stage and they all flow together, it was brilliant. And I felt like all their stage performances as well were filmed like music videos. You got like these really long, lingering close-ups of the lead singer, and then you got one where like the three backup singers would be perfectly aligned. And I really loved that. And it was sort of, again, that's kind of adding a bit of glamour, I suppose, to this otherwise very grey, very dark landscape.
I think you're right. I think if I was watching this now for the first time, I probably wouldn't expect it to be as polished in terms of how good they are at playing the music as they are. But I think if I could think of like a word to sum that up, it probably would be like, it's authentic, isn't it?
So one moment or one sequence that I really did like was the montage, you know, when he puts the ad in the paper and then everybody starts turning up, like everybody. It's this massive sort of community event, isn't it? It's like, oh, you're going down for the audition at Jimmy's or whatever. And then it's just great to sort of hear the kind of music that he deems unworthy. So people will, you know, say the name of a band and he slams the door in their face, or they'll be like, oh, my influences are Bob Dylan. And he's like, okay. So he invites him across the threshold, but then he's rubbish and he's got to go as well. And it's great that he obviously really knows what he wants and he's unwilling to compromise, which I think is great.
Yeah, it's your classic like expositional type montage where he puts an ad in the paper and then every Tom, Dick and Harry starts showing up, whether they can or can't play an instrument. And like, you get people literally screaming in his face. And he's got this question and he keeps asking them who your influences. And like you say, they go through all these people and none of them are soul music, even though he's specified that it's soul music. It's like people being like, Depeche Mode. And it's like, no. And then U2, Joan Baez, Joni Mitchell, all that, and it's just a really funny sequence. But then you slowly get they start to do is they have a collection of people having the door slammed in the face, and then it's people slowly make their way into the house, and then it starts being weaved in and out of people who actually then do get into the band. So you do get a lot of really good comedy moments. Like there's a bit where there's like some people in his house playing like classic Irish folk music, so his mum and his sisters are just Irish dancing in the background. And they're not even really in it. They've got like one scene, but in the background of their Irish dancing, and he's just kind of got his head in his hands. And but no, yeah, I thought that was really funny. It was a really interesting way to show him putting the band together, but also, like you say, the fact that it's very much got its own community at its heart of the kind of South Side Dubliners, if you will.
Yeah, and it just feels like such an event. Like nothing happens there. Like everybody's got time on their hands, and so everybody comes to audition. Great as well. You get a few of them. There'd be like 4 or 5 in a group, sort of sat at the bottom of the stairs and that, and the dad's got to maneuver through them and stuff. And yeah, it's just like kids.
So, was there anything you didn't like about the film?
I don't really think there was, to be honest. There wasn't really anything for me to pick up on. I don't feel like there was any holes in the stories. I didn't feel like it sort of fell flat in any way. You know, I felt like I was engaged from start to finish. Why? What about you?
Same as you, really. Not really anything, because I don't want. I always try. We always trying to give a balanced argument. You know, don't we? In terms of if we didn't like it, we try and find something we didn't like, we did like, and vice versa. I'd say maybe it lost a little momentum. So I think it's just under 2 hours. I think after the first hour, maybe a bit longer, it lost a slight bit of momentum and became a little bit repetitive in terms of just gig after gig after gig. But that didn't, because I like the music so much, that didn't really take anything away from the film for me. I was interested to know what you thought about the way the female characters were portrayed, because they are kind of portrayed as being a little gullible, kind of a little bit. Their whole function is to kind of be there, look pretty, and be looked at by the men. They're also portrayed as being, I would say, a little bit over emotional and kind of there's a joke in the film about them all being with the trumpet player, the guy we were talking about before, who may or may not be full of shit. And there's a joke through the film that they all are with him at some point. And then that eventually leads to a fight, which eventually leads to a bigger fight, which is why the band break up. And I was interested to know, because I mean, the film is nearly 30 years old. Did you think there was an issue with that? Or is it just the fact that, am I looking for something that's not really there? Or are the women kind of a little bit of a stereotype, I suppose?
So I do think there might be slight elements of that. There was a couple of really voyeuristic moments as well. I think it's when they're all coming for practice at Joey's house. And you have to you go down to the bottom of the garden and then you climb over the ladder and then you climb down the other end and then that's where the practice is happening. And obviously as the girls are climbing down this ladder, all the lads are just like staring, like, slack jaw, just like properly gawking at them. And you get a lot of that. And that does happen sort of quite a few times. The storyline, the thing with Joey is, so how old are the ladies meant to be? I know you said then that the lead singer the actor himself was a teenager, but the female actors
it never really says. I always got the impression that the bulk of them are around the same age, and they're all kind of early to mid-20s, I think.
Yeah.
So it never specifically says how old they are, but it mentions that a lot of them went to school together.
Yeah, they sort of knew each other.
So I would say,
school,
I would say early to mid-20s if I had to put a number on it.
Yeah. So that it's it's not really anything with Joey. It's like he's a musician. The girls are kind of falling for that. To go for a bit of an older man sort of thing, even though he is full of shit. I feel like they know he's full of shit. But it's just, if you look at the other lads around them, sort of they still view them as quite immature. And the lads sort of view them as a bit sort of, stuck up or uptight or whatever, just because they won't let them grab a booze or whatever. But one thing I did like is in terms of the sort of language and the name calling, the girls really did start to give their own sort of towards the end. I think the lead singer at one point said, calls Bernie a slut, I think, and then she goes, it's like, piss off, you fat fuck, or something like that. Like,
she properly shoves him as well.
Yeah.
Properly shoves him at one point.
And they are, the girls, I feel like the girls are sort of a bit streetwise and they're not, completely, I don't feel like they're completely helpless and they are able to sort of make their own decisions and they do have their own life. But yeah, some of it a bit voyeuristic, I think. But
I think you're right. I think it's a case of they are a little bit voyeuristic. They do look at the girls, but at the same time, there are elements in the way that they're all shown to be quite empowered, quite strong, and quite they give as good as they get, I suppose.
Yeah, certainly.
So we'll move on to talking about the critical reception then. So I'm interested to know, Alice, what do you reckon? How do you reckon it did? Like roughly, was it good? Was it critically well received?
So myself personally, I would probably rate it quite high. I think there are so many really great qualities to it. The story building, like we've said, the use of the music and then using that on the backdrop and the locations and the situations that they're in. All the characters seem to have such depth. And they're all quite likable, even though they're all not sort of good and some of them, display quite questionable behaviour. You do sort of feel connected to all of them. So I wonder if other people felt that too and would sort of rate accordingly. I think this would certainly deserve at least a high 7. I would probably give it a 7.9.
So on IMDb, it gets a 7.6 out of 10.
Okay,
and on Rotten Tomatoes, now this is quite interesting actually, it gets from the audience 90%, and from the critics, it gets 89%. So, 1% give or take, it's about the same. So in terms of its critical reception, do you think that's fair? Is it overrated? Is it underrated?
I would say that's appropriately rated. I think it is a good film. It really is a good film.
I agree. So I think that is about right. I think it's a great film, really feel good, really well directed, and incredible soundtrack. So for me, that is appropriately rated. But obviously, I picked it because it's underseen. So is it underseen?
Well, I hadn't seen it and I hadn't heard of it, so I would say yes.
So there you go. So there we go. Another one for the underseen pile. So get out there and see it. The commitments.
Make it seen.
Yeah.
Shall be so.
Please do get in touch. So we'd love to hear from you. We'd like to possibly do an episode on a film you would like to pick for us. So if you've got one you want us to do, then tweet at us at films_that, or get in touch with us, filmsandthatpod on Facebook and Instagram. Or the email is filmsandthatpod@gmail.com. Please do get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. If you think there's a film you would like us to do, or if there's an opinion you want us to read out about one we've done, then feel free. We'd absolutely love to hear from you. Until then, Alice, thanks very much for joining me.
No problem at all, Josh. Pleasure as always.
And it's goodbye from me. Cheerio.
Bye.
To get people excited about Boost Mobile's new nationwide 5G network, we're offering unlimited talk, text, and data for $25 a month.
Forever.
Even if you have a baby.
Even if your baby has a baby.
Even if you grow old and wrinkly and you start repeating yourself.
Even if you start repeating yourself.
Even if you're on your deathbed and you need to make one last call.
Or text.
Right, or text. The long-lost son you abandoned at birth.
You'll still get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile.
Forever!
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.
Forever!
Renew your health and wellness purpose this new year with The Reset on Alo Moves, a curated weekly program of Pilates, strength, and step goals to kickstart your fitness journey. It's a 30-day week-by-week program, 3 days of Pilates, 2 days of strength, and 8,000 daily steps, plus bonus nutrition tips from Sakara. Plus, for only $99, you get a year's worth of access to Alo Moves, on-demand, full studio experience wherever you are. Get moving today at alomoves.com.
Hi, I'm Raj Punjabi from HuffPost.
And I'm Noah Michelson, also from HuffPost.
And we're the hosts of Am I Doing It Wrong?, a new podcast that explores the all-too-human anxieties we have about trying to get our lives right.
Each week on the podcast, Raj and I pick a new topic that we want to understand better and bring a guest expert on to talk us through how to get it right.
And we're talking like legit, credible experts. Doctors, PhDs, all-around superheroes.
From HuffPost and Acast Studios, check out Am I Doing It Wrong? Wherever you get your podcasts.